What's up, party people, and welcome to episode 2 of Just 3 with Joe. Super exciting show lined up for you guys today. Be joined by Marcus Washington, owner and operator of MTC Media. So a great conversation coming up with him, talking a little NBA playoffs and a couple of other topics that we're going to get a chance to discuss. But like we do every episode, going to start things off with my opening salvo, which is just 3 topics in sports that have caught my attention. And I'm going to kick things off with softball. That's right, softball. We just saw the University of Oklahoma Sooners women's softball team become national champions. And I want to talk about the tournament overall. It was fantastic, proving once again that when given the opportunity, A, people want to and will watch women's sports, and 2, shocker, these ladies are pretty damn good at the sports they choose to play. The tournament had everything. I'm talking about all at the wall catches, right fielders gunning people out at home plate, back-to-back home runs, fans. Oh my gosh, the excitement, the chants, the going back and forth. If you were a sports fan, this tournament had everything you could ask for. And it proves once again, we've got to give women an equal opportunity and give them a platform to showcase what they can do. The people saying that no one wants to watch women's sports, no one cares, I'm not sure what you're talking about. If you go on Twitter, go on social media, take a look at the numbers as far as viewership, take a look at what was happening in the stands. Just a great overall atmosphere, great tournament. I hope to see more of it. Second thing that caught my attention is, of course, the start of Euro 2020. You're probably wondering, Joe, what are you talking about? It's the year 2021. Well, this tournament was postponed like all of our lives last year because of the pandemic. So they're still sticking with the same name of 2020. And it's a fantastic tournament. I'm a huge soccer fan. This is to find out who is the king of European soccer. We're talking England, Portugal, France, which is stacked, Italy, a lot of different countries all across Europe getting a chance to play in the group stage. And then, of course, those who succeed advance to the knockout stage. Starting things off today is Italy's going to be playing. So I'm super excited for that. Make sure you stick with Nuts and Bolts Sports for all kinds of coverage on that. One of our writers, Mr. Ty Reeves, will actually be having weekly recap video shows about what's going on in the tournament. So I'm jacked. I'm stoked for Euro 2020. On a somber note, I want to talk a little bit about the treatment, or should I say mistreatment, of Naomi Osaka, who decided to withdraw from the French Open after she was fined for not talking to media and letting everybody know that her mental health was not in the best state. And because of that, she was going to continue to play. But when matches were over, she did not want to talk to media. And the backlash she received from the French Open, from the WTA, and even some fans who thought it was outrageous. People have to understand, at what point will we learn that these athletes are human, just like you and I? They're not robots. They're not machines. You don't stick a quarter in their back. They don't have a USB plug you can plug in, and they can just go until you get tired of them and you can unplug them. Just wanted to see some more support. I fully support her decision. I'm excited to see the conversations centered around mental health is becoming something that we're seeing more and more. You think about Kevin Love, the DeMar DeRozans, the Michael Phelps, especially male athletes and Black male athletes coming to the forefront saying, hey, it's okay not to be okay sometimes. And you have no idea how many people that's helping in a positive way by knowing, well, wow, I'm not alone. DeMar DeRozan feels the same way. Naomi Osaka feels the same way I feel from time to time. And it also can cause some of these people to do something positive, which is to get help and let people know that, hey, I'm not okay. I need to talk to somebody. So to have that kind of response we saw and the way that she was treated, I thought was just plain wrong. And obviously there's a tune-up tournament before Wimbledon. She's also decided not to enter that tournament as well. So I hope that come time for Wimbledon, she's in a great place physically, she's in a great place mentally, and continues to do what she does, which is to be great. So like I said, we are joined by Marcus Washington today. Let's get right into that conversation, shall we? This week on Just 3 with Joe, of course, like I mentioned at the top of the show, our guest is Marcus Mook Washington. This guy is one of the hardest working people in the DMV area when it comes to sports journalism. Super excited to have him on the show and talk to him about NBA playoffs and a couple other sports topics. So at this time, we're going to go ahead and bring him on to the show. I want to welcome you. Welcome to Just 3 with Joe, Mr. Marcus Mook Washington.
Thank you for having me.
Super excited to talk to you, man. Well, let's start with this NBA playoff thing. I know we both watched the games last night. You, being somebody who covers the NBA, covers basketball, and also coaches, I got to start with that Milwaukee Bucks Brooklyn Nets game. The end of the game, the decisions that weren't made by Steve Nash. Kind of want to get your take on Game 3, and then also what you think about this series so far overall.
Well, Brooklyn by far is the most talented team and the better team and the overwhelming favorite. But I was really disappointed in Steve Nash last night because I felt like he has to find a way to get Kyrie involved when they really, really started getting on Durant. And the ball was being forced to Brown. And this is where an NBA coach earns his money. I know a lot of people underrate how hard it is to be an NBA coach, but Kyrie has to be a threat. That was the whole point of having Kyrie with Kevin Durant. I don't care if James Harden was out. The whole point is that if you schematically come at Durant, we have this other top 5 guy that we can get the ball to. And Steve Kerr did an excellent job with that when he had Durant with Steph Curry. You know, hey, you can try to take Durant all you want. You're going to have to deal with Steph. You know, and we didn't see that out of Nash last night. We didn't see, well, all right, you're trying to take Durant away. Now you have to deal with Kyrie. No, here's what we saw. You're going to try to take Durant away. Now you have to deal with Brown. No, that's not how this works. So I was disappointed because that was a great opportunity to go up 3-0, and the series is over. Now, I still think Brooklyn wins this because Milwaukee's in another must-win. They have to win both games at home. There's no two ways about it. And it's another must-win. Now, if you're a Brooklyn fan, here's the thing you can hang your hat on. That game was all in Milwaukee style. They were able to effectively slow the pace down. They jumped out to the big lead. And you know what? You still had a chance to win at the end. And so the adjustment becomes, yes, Giannis and Middleton had great games from a numbers point of view. And that's great and all. But that's about as well as they can play in that series. And again, it's a 3-point game. And I'm a firm believer. I don't know where Milwaukee goes if this does not work because they have no assets left. They have no draft picks left. They're in cap hell. So they have to find a way to make this work. But the truth of the matter is Brooklyn is so set up well because of their complementary pieces. Joe Harris had a tough game last night, and usually he won't. You can't expect for Joe Harris to be that bad in game 4. Brown, again, I thought he took too many shots. There should be no way that Brown gets more shots in the fourth quarter than Kyrie. That should never, ever happen. Totally. And so those are things that Steve Nash needs to go back to because it got to be way too much ISO at the end for Brooklyn. And again, you have one of the best ISO players in Kevin Durant. But the truth of the matter is when you have that complementary piece in, of all people, Kyrie Irving, you have to find a way to make him effective. No different than what Cleveland did with LeBron. When, you know, and Kyrie had all these openings because of LeBron. You can't tell me that Kyrie can't have the same openings because of KD. Come on now. So, yeah, I was disappointed in Steve Nash last night. I thought his lack of creativity cost Brooklyn a chance to go up 3-0.
Yeah, no, for sure. And even that out of bounds play, the inbounds was so sloppy. I don't understand why after the inbounds play we don't call a timeout so we can reset and get a solid play. And I don't get that. And like to your point with that Brown play, if you watch that last shot that Brown took, Joe is wide open in the corner. And I mean, will Joe Harris hit it after having a rough game? We'll never find out. We'll never know because never got the opportunity to have that shot. And with Milwaukee, let's talk a little bit about Giannis. Screaming at the TV, the 3-point shooting. I don't get it. I understand that the NBA is moving towards that way, but that's not your game. And you're not very good at it. Has he improved as a 3-point shooter? Sure he has, but you're not Steph Curry. You're not Klay Thompson. So why do you continue to take these 3-point shots when you know because of your length, you can get by the defender, get to the basket? The only thing I can think of is because of the struggles at the free throw line, a fear. If I take it to the basket hard and get fouled, you know what that means. I got to go to that big scary place, the free throw line, where I think that might just be all on his head with the issues of the free throw shooting. So, I mean, what's your take on Giannis? To your point, you said you don't know where Milwaukee goes from here. If they do lose this series, which I agree with, I think they will, where does Giannis go from here?
I don't know. And the stretching out to the 3-point line, he took one awful 3-pointer in the fourth quarter. No one will remember that because they end up winning. But it's like, what are you doing? I think it's the free throw line and the fact that the last 2 playoffs, teams have successfully walled them off. When he goes to the basket, they wall. And he's not confident enough to free throw line. And that was answered last night during the timeout when he practiced a free throw that he should not have been able to have done, by the way. He practiced a free throw during a timeout. He is utterly scared of that. And this is why I always hesitate to put his name in the same sentences as Kobe and LeBron. And people do it all the time. Giannis has not shown me that he can deliver when everyone knows what's coming. The thing about Kobe was you knew who Kobe was. You just couldn't stop who Kobe was. Even in the game 7 where they beat Boston for that championship, Kobe had an awful shooting game. People don't remember that. You know why people don't remember that? Kobe did everything else for the Lakers, especially in that fourth quarter, to get them that win. Giannis doesn't do that. Same thing with LeBron. LeBron, when the first championship LeBron went to, when they got swept by the San Antonio Spurs, he dragged the likes of Boobie Gibson. He dragged them there.
David Jones, Eric Snow.
And where you knew that he was truly the only threat, but he found a way. Giannis has yet to find a way. That's what gets me about him. He does not find a way. Now, they gave him plenty of help. They went out and traded for Holiday. You already had Chris Middleton there. Yeah. Brook Lopez has remade himself yet again in a positive fashion. You have a lot of things. Dude, you're out of excuses. Whether you're playing the Brooklyn Nets or not, you're playing the Brooklyn Nets without James Harden. You're out of excuses. So for me, with Giannis, I'm not willing to put him in that elite category that so many people are rushing him towards, because I have to see it. And we all know how the NBA is now. I have to see it in the playoffs. It can't be the regular season. You are back-to-back MVP, buddy. You were back-to-back MVP. I expect for you to deliver, and you have not delivered. So until he shows me he can deliver, I always will have a side eye towards Giannis.
Yeah, I'm starting to get to the point where I wonder, is he a Robin, not a Batman? I mean, I hate to say it, but I wonder, do they need to find, is he a star in the NBA? Yeah, but like you said, I agree with you. I don't think he's the elite star. So they need to find one to help him be that 1B option. And is that his wheelhouse? Is it too much? Or does he just need to continue to improve his game? And we know it's not going to happen, but do the media and fans need to back off of their expectations of him, stop putting him in that same category of the Durants, the Currys, and Kobe's, and just accept the fact that, hey, like a lot of players in the NBA, he's good, he's talented, but he's not a game-changing, culture-changing player yet.
Yeah, agreed.
So talking about the Atlanta Hawks Philadelphia 76ers series, heading into the playoffs, I was not a believer in the Atlanta Hawks. I hung my hat on the fact that they're young, they're inexperienced, they'll have this "we're just happy to be here" type of attitude. I actually thought the Knicks had a chance to beat them in the first round. Obviously, that didn't happen. Now, game 1 against the Philadelphia 76ers, they punched Philadelphia in the mouth. Game 2, I saw more of what I expected from Philadelphia as far as tough defense. I think Ben Simmons did a really good job on Trae Young. I won't say he locked him up like a lot of people are saying, but he did really good on defensive end. And knee injury or not, Joel Embiid's a man in a mission. I mean, he's just a beast. A couple of bonehead plays. We think about a technical foul he picked up. But I think this is Philadelphia's series to lose. Of course, it's going to be a big game 3. We know the crowd in Atlanta is going to be crazy and wanting to show everybody what Atlanta's all about. But I still think this is the 76ers series to lose. What do you think 2 games through on this series?
Yeah, I think that Philadelphia, the big adjustment is with Trae Young is let him shoot as many floaters as he wants. And that's what I would take away. That's what I would let him do. I want to take away when Trae Young penetrates and kicks. I don't want Kevin Huerter and those guys hitting threes, because once you give them multiple lanes and multiple ways to win, which the Knicks did, it is hard to beat Atlanta. They're young. They don't know any better, which is good. They don't know they're supposed to be nervous. They don't know that they're supposed to be waiting their turn. And actually playing the Knicks probably helped them, because you had 2 inexperienced teams.
Yeah.
And so Atlanta was really able to get their feet wet to playoff basketball before playing Philadelphia. Now, to your point, the Sixers are probably going to win this series, with Embiid, Tobias Harris, Ben Simmons. By the way, Ben Simmons is so underrated on the defensive end. He doesn't get talked about enough on the defensive end.
That was my defensive player of the year.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Look, I don't even want to get into that, because I would have voted for Ben Simmons and Draymond Green before I would have voted for Rudy Gobert. But that's neither here nor there. But no, I think that's Philadelphia's adjustment is let Trae Young be Trae Young. Let Trae Young score 35 points. What I have to do is I have to make sure that guys like Collins and them don't score 20. and 25. Those guys can't have their levels raised because of Trae Young. So if Philadelphia successfully do that, make Trae Young work for everything. You're just not giving them layups. Make him work for everything while choking off his help. Philadelphia will win this in 5 or 6. I'm not sure if I'm ready to say that Philadelphia will win both in Atlanta, but this looks like a 5 or 6 game series.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's definitely been competitive. But like I said, I watched a couple of Hawks games during the regular season, and of course I knew they were having a good year, but I was definitely impressed with that first round series against the New York Knicks. That's a good point you bring up with them having a little bit of an advantage playing New York in the first round, not having a lot of pressure. If we go to the Western Conference, man, Phoenix Suns, of course, riding the high of eliminating the defending champs. Now you go into the second round. They got the MVP on their team, the Denver Nuggets. Of course, Jamal Murray is out with a knee injury, but Michael Porter Jr. seems to be emerging as a star, and now, unfortunately, which seems to be a theme in the NBA this year, dealing with the back injury. Phoenix Suns, I'm all in now, Mook. I wasn't before. I think these guys can make the NBA Finals. Can they win a Finals? I don't know. Brooklyn's a juggernaut. But I think in the Western Conference, even withstanding what the Utah Jazz have done, I think Phoenix is head and shoulders the best team in the West.
They are, and this is why, even though I'm a Knicks fan, this is why I was so disappointed that Monty Williams was not Coach of the Year, because what he's done out there has been spectacular, and he should have been Coach of the Year. And remember, a lot of people are going to try to forget this. Remember all of the criticism that Phoenix took for taking DeAndre Ayton. And that's the one thing that you can say, hey, I love Doncic as much as the next guy. But Ayton and Trae Young, who both took a bunch of crap for being chosen before him, what they've done for their teams has been incredible. And I'll even go further with Ayton. Don't you notice that we're starting to see traditional centers go back to being more effective? The Lakers traded they let 2 traditional centers go, and they struggled all year. Now, if you look at Phoenix, Monty Williams has found a way to have a traditional center, along with having that 3-point pace and space, along with somehow, some way keeping Chris Paul healthy. And that's what I'm happy for.
Yeah, me too.
Chris Paul from Lob City, injuries derailed him.
Yep.
Houston, injuries derailed him. And you almost feel sorry for this guy who does not get the credit that he deserves. How can he be so underrated? We don't even talk about him.
Yeah, it's crazy.
What he did at Oklahoma City last year should never been forgotten. That team had no business.
Yeah, none at all. None at all.
So when you bring him to Phoenix, where he can be the adult in the room, with all of that talent and a coach who can just flat out coach, great communicator, great with X's and O's. I'm with you. I think Phoenix is the best team in the West. And yes, I do think they're slightly better than Utah. And so I definitely think they're better at this point than Denver, because I have to see Mike Malone do something besides every time they lose, throwing the players under the bus. He did it again after game 2. Oh, we quit. Yeah. This is every year with Mike Malone. As soon as things go off the rails, he goes to the media and he finds a way to say what the players aren't doing. And my question to him is, what the hell have you done?
Yeah.
Because I didn't see any players quit in game 2. What adjustments did you make in game 2? So I would like to see Mike Malone take a little bit more responsibility and accountability for how Denver is playing instead of always blaming the players. Right.
Yeah, I think Mike Malone, too, I'm sure thinks this is some kind of motivational tactic. It's not working, obviously. And I wonder, too, at what point does that get old to the players? And they're going to want a new voice, and not just a new voice, but someone that supports them and says, hey, you know what? I own it. It's my bad. I'm the one that makes the decisions. I didn't make the right decisions. We'll make some changes. Because that's got to get old really quick.
Yeah, and it's going to be, because, as I try to tell people all the time, and NBA, you're dealing with grown men. You're not going to sit around. They're not going to do that. They are not going to have you throw them under the bus every time there's a shortcoming. Now, for Denver and their adjustments to Phoenix, I'm almost leaning towards Denver is going to have to do what Milwaukee did last night. They're almost going to have to slow the pace down. They've got to change the tenor and the pace of that game. They've got to make it something different. And they are more equipped to make this more of a grab shoot 35% game than Phoenix is. And so that would be my adjustment for game 3 is we're going to put in some things defensively. We're probably going to walk the ball up the floor a little bit more. We're going to slow this down to get Phoenix out of rhythm. Once we do that, then we can go back to pushing that ball up. But for right now, if we're going to make this into a track meet, games 1, games 2 has shown we just don't have a big enough boat to beat Phoenix in that fashion.
For sure. And also, too, unfortunately, whether he wants to or not, people are going to start throwing even more shots at Jokic as far as being the MVP. And then here you are now in the second round of the NBA playoffs. They won't mention that the Jamal Murray's out. They won't talk about the Michael Porter Jr., number one, inconsistent, but also number two, the back injury. We don't know how serious it is. All they're going to say is, this is the MVP, and look at him getting trounced in the second round, which is not fair to him. He's a great player, a great playmaker. But to your point, he's up against a monster right now.
I can tell you this. The NBA, more than any other professional sports, if you're the MVP, you have more pressure on you than any other professional sport. I mean, because as soon as you have MVP at the end of your name, boy, the expectations are off the charts for you. They are off the charts. We do have, I always thought that Steve Nash got a free pass because he was back-to-back MVP guy too, but he didn't get that pressure to do. But for the most part, I remember Dirk got throttled. When they won the MVP, the guy eliminated in the first round, throttled because of the pressure that comes with being the MVP in the NBA. So to your point, though it's probably unfair, Jokic has got to do something to turn this series around.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be one of his defining moments for sure. We talked about the other series in the West, Utah Jazz, Los Angeles Clippers. I thought the Clippers should have gotten rid of Dallas a lot earlier than they did. They gave Dallas too many opportunities to still be in that series. And I thought that, okay, they won game 7. They're back on track now. Yes, Utah's the number 1 seed. And I admit it, my thought was, but it's Utah. I mean, Donovan Mitchell hadn't played in forever because of the ankle. And now these first 2 games, man, the Utah Jazz, they have a possibility to sweep this series. I mean, Donovan Mitchell, we knew was a good player. But I think now you can start adding that great in front of his name when you talk about him. I mean, he's just very aggressive, making the most of the opportunity, kind of like a Devin Booker, a guy that's been waiting a long time for this opportunity to be on the playoff stage and show the league and show the world what they're capable of. He's definitely grabbing the bull by the horns. But the Jazz just seem to be too much for the Clippers. And then, shocker, we're talking about this, but once again, Paul George, nowhere to be found. Great social media game. Does a great job online, but when it comes to playing basketball in the playoffs, just not seeing a lot from him. And then Rajon Rondo didn't even play last night. I mean, the Clippers just seem to be a mess. People forget that Tyronn Lue's a NBA championship winning coach, so I won't throw it away until there's no chance for the Clippers to come back. But what's been your assessment so far of this series through 2 games?
The Clippers have been flawed ever since they brought those two there, Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. And the thing was the hype behind it and the getting rid of Doc Rivers and throwing Doc Rivers under the bus. You know, oh, Doc just can't get it done. If Doc didn't get that one championship in Boston, you know, people would realize how much he's underachieved with talent. And that's not the case. Paul George and Kawhi Leonard with the construction of this team, it's not going to work. I never thought they were going to win an NBA championship with the construction of this team. And this is going to be a big problem because Paul George has an extension where it's not like you can really shift away from that. No one's taking that contract.
Yeah.
But Kawhi has an opt-out. What happens if he opts out?
Smart man. Yeah.
You're literally starting over. And the Clippers, to me, still do not have enough shooting. And defensively, they don't get stops when they need it. And the thing about it is George and Kawhi were brought there for that.
Yeah.
Oh, we get stops when we need
two elite defenders. Yeah.
Yeah, when you need stops. And that's what NBA is. It is a getting stops game. And so when you need stops, I have 2 of the best perimeter guys, defenders that can get stops. With the exception of they proved in the Dallas series they couldn't get stops.
Yeah.
And now they're proving here in the Utah series they can't get stops when they need it. That team, that to me is the story of the NBA going into the offseason. If the Clippers get eliminated by Utah, where does that franchise go? They're trying to get a new arena. You know, Ballmer paid all that money to buy out the Forum away from MSG, so away from Dolan, when Dolan threatened to sue. So you have all of these things going on right now because the thought process was we might have a title before we move to a new arena. We'll have Kawhi Leonard, we'll have Paul George, we'll have yada, 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 yada. Now, it looks like you're not going to have a title. There's a chance you won't have Kawhi Leonard. You mortgaged all your picks to get Paul George. That is, to me, and I hate to be like this because really the story should be Utah. And what they've done this season, how great of a coach Quinn Snyder has been.
Yeah, he's elite.
Donovan Mitchell shrugging off Shaq's ridiculous comments during the regular season and showing who Donovan Mitchell is.
Absolutely.
Those should be the stories. But I'm telling you, the nanosecond the Clippers get eliminated, the story is going to be, boy, this has been one of the biggest failed experiments in the NBA. And this is a cautionary tale. When you look at the Clippers and you look at the Bucks, the whole mortgaging for two players who have not proven that they can perform on the big stage. I love Drew Holiday to death. I did not love as much as they traded to get him. Paul George.
I think at the time, though, Mook, when they made that trade, you couldn't have known Brooklyn was going to do what they were going to do there.
Right.
You knew obviously Durant, okay, Kyrie Irving, we got Chris Middleton, we got Giannis, we should be okay. And then boom, James Harden. Well, damn.
Right. But I tell people all the time, just because you make a franchise-defining move does not mean that other teams are going to quit trying.
Yeah.
And the Clippers did the same thing. Now, I didn't care that the Clippers went for Paul George. I did care about how much they traded for Paul George. I'm not a big assets guy, but what they've done is we had three teams in the NBA. By the way, I will say this is the great thing about the NBA. We had three teams in the NBA, at least three teams who said, you know what, we are going for it. We are flat out going for it. This is what makes the NBA great. So many teams go for it. In the NFL, you don't see that. In the NFL, here's what you see. Oh, we have a 4-year plan. Oh, we're going to build through the draft. Oh, we're going to do this and that. And in the NBA, and this is partially on the NBA governors, to be honest with you, how the salary cap is structured, how punitive it is to be a repeat taxpayer, how the rookie sliding scale is where I have control essentially for your first 5 years of your career. Even when I draft well, the NBA does not allow me truly to keep 3 and 4 guys, whether I'm the one who drafted those 3 or 4 guys or not. So like in the case of the Clippers or Milwaukee, the case may be, it's great to say build young, but the NBA CBA forces teams to do what the Clippers did, what the Bucks did. It forces them because I know even if, and don't, all you have to do is go to Oklahoma City Thunder when they had, Ibaka, Harden, Westbrook, and Durant. And they knew because of their market and because of how the luxury tax is and the repeater tax is, well, I have to decide between Harden and Ibaka because I can't pay that tax.
Yeah.
And so that plays such a part in the NBA of saying, look, I have these great players. I might have these assets, but you know what? I have to cash those assets in for something. Then we saw in Boston, they never did, and they can't win. They had a boatload of assets.
If I had to hear one more time about the picks.
Right, yeah, exactly. And you know the irony behind it? Everyone could not wait to tell you how Boston fleeced Brooklyn in the Garnett deal. And yet the Nets have a better chance of getting to an NBA Finals first than the Celtics. So I understand both ways, but with the Clippers, they bet wrong. And this is why I'll give Toronto. Toronto knew in their heart of hearts that Kawhi Leonard was not going to resign there. But they also knew that they had a team that could win a title or at least get to the NBA Finals. They rolled the dice. They didn't give up a boatload of assets. And they had their team set up where they knew that they could sustain the loss of Kawhi leaving without having to tear down and rebuild. Yeah. That's where Toronto was smart. Clippers, Milwaukee, those teams are not, I won't say Milwaukee, but the Clippers, they're not set up that way. If Kawhi leaves with Paul George's contract, with the bench they have and the roster they have to tear down to the studs. They have to tear down to the studs. So no, that's where that series is for me. I, like yourself, I expect for Utah to win the series. And I'm going to say it's going to be in 5 because I think that Utah will split in Los Angeles. And then they'll wrap it up on their home floor.
No, I feel the same way about that.
Yeah. So I mean that's where I am out west with that series.
Now, changing gears and talking a little bit about college sports. I know that you and I are both big college sports fans, whether it be football or basketball. Name, image, and likeness is coming, whether the NCAA wants it to or not. In my opinion, I think you would agree, it's long overdue. These guys, I mean, you think about the amount of players in all sports, not just the major ones, that suffer catastrophic injuries, that are lifelong rehabilitation. And yes, you can say, well, they have a degree to show for it, but the degree doesn't pay medical bills at all, or the mental or physical anguish they have for the rest of their lives. And when these schools are making millions, if not billions of dollars off these athletes, it's long overdue and about time they started to get some kind of compensation for it, besides just free T-shirts or a swag bag waiting for you at your hotel in your hotel room when you go to these championship tournaments. So I see a lot of the old guard leaving. Think about the Roy Williams. Think about Coach K. And you can say it has something to do with age, but I think a lot of these older coaches don't want to deal with name, image, and likeness. They think it's going to interfere with the way they do things. It's going to change college sports as the way we see it and know it growing up. That's clearly going to happen. But I wouldn't be surprised if you see more of these old generation coaches start to step down and kind of clear the way. And I think that what name, image, and likeness is going to do is it's going to cause these programs to be more creative. Okay, these kids want to be on Instagram. They want to be on TikTok. They want to get their brand out there. What can we do to make our team that runs our social or that helps with brands better than a Michigan State or better than a Maryland? So these kids will want to come to our school because, yes, you're getting an education. And, yes, we have a good team, but we also have a branding team that can help them get their name and face out there, make a little bit of money before they go into a professional realm. Or if they don't go into the professional realm, at least they can make as much money as they possibly can while they're in college. But I don't think what I'm hearing a lot of people say is that NIL is the end of college sports. It's going to be the death of college sports. What's your thoughts on that?
First of all, those people are they're full of it. There is no condition. We live in the greatest free market country in this world. The idea that there was ever a setup where free market was considered a violation and you had to give up your rights to your name and your likeness as if you're a slave, as a condition of accepting something should have never been legal in the first place. It should have never been legal in the first place. It took way too long for there to be a condition, these anti-free market conditions put in. Never. It never should have been. So I am all in favor of people like Johnny Manziel. Johnny Manziel recently said, he was signing autographs anyway, made $30-something thousand. And I say, good for you, because I should not, anything that's not dealing with the school, any income I am legally generating outside of school has nothing to do with the school. You should not be regulating that on any level for anyone. You don't regulate it for other students. And I don't care about what's fair and not fair. Nothing is fair in life. And I can tell you, I'll use myself as an example. I was a political science major. Most opportunities that I was given in college to get experience were not paid. It was free internship, blah, 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 blah. Now, I have a buddy of mine that was an engineering major. Oh, his opportunities, a lot of them were pay opportunities, all these opportunities where he was going to be paid and get college credit, so on and so forth. No one said, well, that's really unfair because Marcus is a political science major and he doesn't have the same opportunities as the engineering major. So you know what we're going to do? The engineering major, all the money you make, we're going to put it in a pot and we're going to redistribute it. That never happened. That conversation never happened because that's what's known as socialism. And I tell people all the time, it always amazes me how many people are anti-socialist until it comes to college sports and professional sports. Then all of a sudden we're all socialists, right? Well, I'm not a socialist. So I don't care. I don't care what these kids are making off of campus. I don't care if they go to Billy Bob's car dealership and from 12 to 4, they are signing autographs at $25 an autograph. Don't care. They should be able to, because you know why? This is how our country works. Our country works in this way with everything, with the exception of college sports, which makes no sense. College sports in this way not because they want to protect the kids, which is what they always say. Oh, we're protecting them from being exploited. How do you protect them from being exploited when you're exploiting them?
Yeah,
I mean, come on.
Every day.
Right. So my thing is that there should never be a condition where you do not own yourself. And that's what college athletics and the NCAA is trying to convince people, that we need to protect you by you not owning you. And and this is not to go to a political side, but I will quote what a professor told me a long time ago in college, where he said about one of the particular conflicts that the United States was in. And he said, Marcus, we try to convince them that we need to kill them to save them. We're trying to convince college students that you need to be poor, desperate, and everything else because we're trying to save you. We're trying to save you from you. And where we are in society and where these kids are in being able to gain the knowledge of how this train truly works, nobody wants to hear that you're keeping me poor. You're telling me I can't own myself because somehow, some way you're protecting me from me. No, and no one's buying it, and no one wants to hear it anymore. And I just love listening to Jay Billis because we are on the same page on this. It's like, it's crap. Stop trying to sell this garbage.
Yeah,
because that's what it is. It's garbage. It's one of those things. Well, people want to defend it under the auspices of, well, this is the way it's always been. Let me tell you something, and I will not go into specifics. Go back 50, 60, 70 years ago. We can sit around things that was socially norms that over time we realized, probably should be changed, right? We should change these things.
I can think of a couple of things that go on those lines. Yeah.
And again, I'm from the generation where it was normal to think that when you go to college, you are not to generate your own marketability. And I realized the flaw of it. I played during that time. I coached during this time. And I understand not only has the world changed, but when I look back to what was the norm back then during my time, I find it like so utterly ridiculous that we ever thought that sort of system should be the norm. It's almost embarrassing. And so I am 100% behind all these athletes. And I will say this to tell you how clueless the NCAA still is. And I tweeted this at the NIL trial, whatever you wanted to call it, when they met with Congress. Under the witnesses list were no current student athletes. They were either coaches or university administrators. And you still will not, with your house of cards crumbling, you still will not give the student athlete their own voice because you're so afraid that they will get out in public, they will get in front of Congress and educate everyone on what their life and their experience truly is on campus. And you don't want people to know. What you want people to think is, this is the greatest setup ever. And if I was in those shoes, I would definitely do it. And you want to think that these guys are living this charmed life that they're truly not.
Yeah,
the NCAA.
It also depends on the sport you play too, as well. The charm life might be kind of like for football players, but when you're a baseball player, gymnastics, field hockey, lacrosse, I don't think you're having the same experience as a starting quarterback in Alabama.
No, oh no, not at all. And I'll say this: and not to bleed over into the college football playoffs, the recommendation to expand to 12 teams. My solution always is that we have way too many Division I teams in college football and college basketball. I think that's where a lot of the problems are generating. And don't tell me about equity, because I will tell people this all the time. If you want equity in society and equity in industries and stuff, I could think of about 10,000 other industries where having an even playing field is a hell of a lot more important than college sports.
Yeah.
So no, every school doesn't have to be Division I in the name of a even playing field. No. You want an even playing field? How about having an even playing field for Division I coaching opportunities? How about having an even playing field for being university president? How about having an even playing field for being a university AD? Those are things when we're talking about leadership positions. That's where having an even playing field should be important. This whole even playing field, so Central Michigan can have the same opportunities as the University of Michigan, it's never going to happen anyway, because University of Michigan's brand, I don't care how many rules you put in, University of Michigan's brand is so strong, it's never going to be even. So quit saying that. That's not the way this works. It's not the way it works. I don't want to hear the whole thing about even playing field. We have too many D1 teams. The NIL needs to be changed, and things need to be run like things are run in society today for 2021. This is why you're seeing leagues like Overtime Elite. This is why you're seeing new leagues pop up where guys are playing. This is why you have the G League Ignite. These are the reason why you have those things. And yes, Cade Cunningham turned down an Ignite contract to play for Oklahoma State, by the way, after they hired his brother. That should be said. After they put his brother on the staff, and magically after his brother was on the staff for a year, his brother has decided to step down. Like, we're all shocked by this.
We want to talk about that part, though.
Right, yeah. But guys like Jalen Green and Kamunga and I forget the other guy, Nix, and all those guys who went that way, I can understand why. Because no one is buying the garbage that the NCAA is selling anymore.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll have to have you back on the show talk about the college football possible expansion, because I like that idea of the expansion. I think it's a good idea, and I think that a lot of people I know I know you're a Notre Dame fan, so I'd love to hear your perspective of Notre Dame. But another day, let's slide over to the NFL as we talk about. Obviously, there's a lot going on. Julio Jones just got traded. Aaron Rodgers, Willie, won't he? But I want to talk about leadership and coaches. When it comes to the upcoming NFL season, who are some of the names you think day one? I'm talking about like day one of training camp. The seat's already warm and they've got to produce. I mean, like for me, just think off the top of my head, if Aaron Rodgers has not come back to Green Bay, I think Matt LaFleur's name is on that list as somebody who's definitely under pressure to perform. And I would also say Mike McCarthy at Dallas with a healthy Dak Prescott, the emphasis they made on defense during the draft. Those are just two names that come to mind for me that are going to be under the hot seat day one. What about yourself?
Matt Nagy in Chicago. They have botched up the quarterback position, which is the one position in the NFL you cannot botch. Yeah, they have botched it up. And I really thought that they mismanaged Trubisky, and a lot of that is because they traded up to get him, and then you trade up to get him, and the other quarterbacks in that draft class seem to be so far ahead of what you traded up to get. And I think he has to make it work now with Justin Fields. And Chicago has a chance to win that division because of just what you just said. If Green Bay does not have Aaron Rodgers for part of the season, all of the season, whatever, that division is wide open.
Yeah, for sure.
And you've traded up to get Trubisky. You traded draft picks a few years ago to get Khalil Mack. You've done these things, and now the excuses are running out. You have to deliver on this, and you have to deliver with a division that's winnable. And I'll stay in the same division. Go to Minnesota. How much can Zimmer survive this when, again, and this is to no fault of his, they overpaid to bring Kirk Cousins in?
For sure.
And again, they have not got to the promised land at all. And let's remember this, and fair or unfair, they were in the NFC Championship game the year before they brought Cousins in.
Yeah.
They've got Diggs, they've got Thielen. They have weapons. You have a Pro Bowl running back. They have weapons beyond. You can't win 9 games with that weapon. You cannot. And maybe, Minnesota looks to get an offensive-minded coach. Maybe the Bears go back to a defensive-minded coach. Those are the two that jump out at me right off the cuff. And a third one, and I know this one might be crazy, Cully in Houston, and I'll tell you why. If they do move Watson, how much patience do they have with him? Is this a woke situation in Arizona? They gave him 1 year. GM screws up on the quarterback draft when they brought in the young man from UCLA whose name is right now.
Josh Rosen.
He got 1 year. And they said, well, you know what? We think that we should have never hired him. And they hired him. If Cully does not work in 1 year, does Houston do the same thing? Do they sit around there and say, I know this sounds unfair, but we just think that we made a mistake and we want to correct that mistake right now, as opposed to down the line? Look at Arizona. It looked like it's working in Arizona that they did that. Yeah. Why don't we if we trade Watson and we need to go with a young quarterback, why don't we come out and get a quarterback whisperer, one of the worst names ever? That is not true. And why don't we flip the staff now before we go too far down the line, which they've already done with Bill O'Brien, where it wasn't good enough that you stay with Bill O'Brien too long as a coach. But then you eventually give him personnel decisions. So now you're down that train track with a guy who cannot get this team over the top as a coach, who makes just absolutely the worst decisions as a GM. So I don't know if Watson is moved, pays for the sins of his predecessor. So again, that's the one for me. Yeah, that's the one for me that might be a shock, that because this has happened in Arizona, that I don't think is out of the realm of possibility that happened in Houston.
I just knew you were going to say John Gruden. I know he has that mega contract, and I know him and Mark Davis are buddies, but I mean, the expectations and the results, they weren't that far off last year, though, from the games I saw. Vegas just got to take it to the next level and figure out, is Derek Carr a guy or not? I'm assuming the answer is yes, because he's still there. But I just wonder, how patient is Davis going to be? You're in a new stadium, brand new market. And I don't know, man.
Well, the one thing that plays in John Gruden's favor, and I'll compare it to something we can all relate with. If you broke up with a girl for this other girl, and you know early on that other girl might not be what you thought she was, you are not going to admit that you made a mistake. And you're going to give her every chance to turn this thing around. Because I'm not going to sit around there and make mistakes after I left the last girl. And I think this is where we are with Davis, and I'll start with the front office when they got rid of McKenzie and brought in Mayock. I think there's a piece of Davis that does not want to admit that this 10-year, $100 million contract and the TV guy that he brought in as the personnel expert might have been a mistake. And the thing that kills me with the Raiders is the fact that now we're seeing that those first 8 weeks are one thing and those last 8 weeks are another. And it's Gruden not making the adjustment. Is Gruden overusing some players where by the end of the year, they're so grinded down that they can't give you the production that they gave you in the first half of the season. And that is becoming my worry. And it's why I do think the Raiders overpaid Kenyon Drake to come in at $11 million to be a backup running back, because they're running Jacobson to the ground. Yep. And it shows in the second half of the year. It shows in the second half of games. They just do boneheaded things, and they do look tired. And you're right, the Derek Carr thing. We all know that John Gruden's history shows one thing. He dates a quarterback, but he never marries him. Yeah. And Derek Carr is in that situation where he knows in his heart of hearts that his coach is not married to him. And I don't care what the stats he's put up. I do think eventually he'll be replaced. I just think the Raiders are waiting for the time to replace him. But I do think that eventually he'll be replaced for some veteran that probably only has 3 years left in him or 4 years left in him. The way he did the Raiders the first time with Gannon. Yeah. The way he did in Tampa when they brought in Brad Johnson. I think we're going to see the Raiders go to that point. And this is a cautionary tale. a lot of things change about the NFL when you're sitting in a booth. And I think a lot of it is communication. When Gruden came in and could not work out deals with Amari Cooper and Khalil Mack because he thought it was going to be the NFL that he left instead of the NFL that we see now, I think that was when the sirens first went off. And they did not take advantage of those picks that they received. Once again, the Raiders are rebuilding. Yeah, they're rebuilding their defensive backfield again for the 100th straight year. They're rebuilding their defensive line for the 100th straight year because they can't get a pass rush. These are things that have happened over 3 and 4 years. To your point, should Gruden be on the hook for it? Absolutely. He has the power of all powers in the NFL. I'm just saying I don't think he's in trouble because I think Mark Davis's pride will not have him admit. He is the polar opposite of his dad. His dad would have fired Gruden by now. Gruden 2.0, when that didn't happen, his dad would have said, you got the hook, buddy. Mark Davis is the polar opposite. Mark Davis is, I am not going to admit that I botched this when I fired competent people to bring this guy in. That's the only reason I don't put Gruden on that list. No, Gruden would have to quit. Gruden would have to quit on his own. And are you going to forfeit away $100 million? Nah. No, exactly.
Especially when there's no pressure on me to win. I can just win 7, 8 games and still get my check. I'm good. I see you tomorrow morning.
Yeah. And again, we go back to that is the difference between the NBA and the NFL. See, the NBA, because of the national contracts, the NFL essentially gives out welfare checks in triple-digit millions. I can be completely incompetent, and I know I'm going to get my national TV money welfare check. So I can be incompetent for as long as I want to be incompetent. In the NBA, incompetence gets you fired. Yeah. In the NBA, incompetence gives you a half-filled arena. Mm-hmm. And now, because in the NBA, just like in Major League Baseball and in hockey, there is a pot of your regional and local money that you need that the NFL doesn't need because of their national contract. So you can't sit around and have a John Gruden there for years. The closest you can say that you have that in the NBA is Dallas, where they have not won a playoff series in 10 years now, and they still have the same coach and the same GM. Any other place in the NBA, that doesn't happen, but routinely we see that happen in the NFL, and it's because of the national TV contract. Because if you had to truly compete, there is no way you can let John Gruden's of the world stay as long as he has stayed and produce what he's produced.
Yeah, and like I took to my point, especially in the new market, when you're trying to build that fan base. I mean, when you think about Vegas, I don't think about football. I think of 10 of the things that I can do in Vegas. That's one of them. But that's not the first thing that comes to mind. So, I mean, I would think that you want to produce a winner. So, hey, instead of going to the casino, let's go check out this Raiders team that we have now and this brand new arena that you can't miss driving to and from the Strip. Let's go check it out. Let's go watch a game there. But when you're producing a team that's not winning, do I really want to do that? I don't want to take my chances of going to the casino floor or watching a show. So that'll be something interesting to keep our eye on, man. Kind of wanted to switch gears a little bit and go to one of my favorite segments of the show, and that is the three-piece segment. For those who are new to Just 3 with Joe, it's just 3 rapid-fire questions, a chance for Marcus to respond and kind of get his thoughts on it. Some things are sports-related, some are personal and funny. It's kind of all over the place. So I'm going to start with something that's Marcus lives in Virginia. I live in Maryland. For you guys who don't know that, we call that the DMV. That's the district, Maryland and Virginia. So amongst people in Maryland and in the district, we always say that the worst drivers are from Virginia. So I give you 30 seconds, Marcus, to defend the honor of the Virginia driver. Why are you guys not the worst drivers in the DMV?
Oh, my gosh. The worst drivers have Maryland license plates. Oh, they're the worst. You're in the left lane going 40 miles an hour on the beltway. It's a killer. I make regular trips to College Park. I cannot say on your show some of the names and the words I use as soon as I cross over that 495-270 split. No, I defend Virginia drivers because for the most part, most of us have common sense that if we're in the left lane, we know that we should need to keep up with the speed of traffic. We're not trying to prove a point by driving the speed limit in the left lane.
All right, I figured, it's a good chance to get somebody from Virginia to get your side of the takes. I mean, it's literally an unspoken rule. Everybody knows it. People in Maryland always say, oh, there's traffic on the driver. If there's an accident, it must be a Virginia driver. So I figured it was an opportune time to get a Virginia driver to kind of.
Hold on. I have a stat for you.
Oh, here we go.
In the DMV, Maryland was the only state that during the COVID-19 breakout that saw an increase in percentage of accidents.
I got to see that.
DC and Virginia did not. We did not see an increase in accidents.
You got to send that to me. Probably ducking and diving
I'll send it to you after the show.
We were probably ducking and diving people that had VA plates trying to avoid accidents, so we ended up getting one on our own. Now, with the pandemic going on and people staying at home, everyone's acquired new skills, got brand new things they're trying to achieve. 2021, we're halfway through the year. What's one goal you have for your brand, for making the cut with Mook? What's one thing you want to achieve still before the end of this year?
Well, as you can tell, the polo has a different logo on it that's MTC Media. So one of the things that we do want to do here is we want to expand video and photography content in bite-sized chunks for the consumer, as opposed to 1,000-word articles and those type of things. We want to be more digital. And that's one of the things that we're concentrating on. We're rebranding the MTC Media. Making the Cut with Mook will fall under the header and under MTC Media, and we will branch out under MTC Media to other things. Like I said, definitely want to do more video things, expand out our coverage. Even though we cover just about everything, we want to expand out the coverage, want to get more into photography and those type of things. So big year for 2021 for us, and it'll bleed into 2022. But you're already seeing it. Our YouTube channel, you're seeing more videos. We're using the other social media things, TikTok, Instagram, both IGTV and Instagram Reels. Just anything that gives the consumer something that they can digest in their busy lifestyle.
Very cool, very cool. Nothing wrong with that at all. And now my last question is the most important question to me. That Virginia driver thing, you kind of struck a chord with me over here. I'm about to call some people after the show about that one. But I know that just like myself, you are a connoisseur of snacks. So it is a day where you're going to have to sit at the house, pump out content, be laser focused. What is Marcus Washington's snack of choice and why?
Well, I'm going to tell you right now, if in our home office where we have our studio set up, there's always a family-sized bag of peanut butter M&Ms. I am a peanut butter fiend. I love peanut butter with almost anything. Now, if you want to go to the chip route, I will say this. You know what? And this is going to show my age a little bit. What is underrated that I take on all long trips are Bugles. Just the original Bugles. Okay. I love them. Yeah. But no, definitely peanut butter M&Ms. You'll always find in the studio. Definitely, again, I love peanut butter. I love M&Ms, and the idea that they married the two. Now, I'm old enough to remember when E.T. first came out, and it was such a big deal of Reese's Pieces, and that did not exist before then. It was part of what the movie and stuff, and it just blew up. And I would eat Reese's Pieces all the time because it was the first one that had the shell with the peanut butter in it. And then eventually M&Ms went down that way. M&Ms have so many different versions of them now that it's almost unreal. But definitely M&Ms peanut butter.
No, not a bad choice at all. For myself, it's either Reese's peanut butter cups all the time, or I always got a king size pack in the freezer somewhere, or it's going to be some flavor of Cheez-Its laying around.
Oh, yeah,
sure. Cheez-Its is always one of my go-tos.
Oh, look, downstairs I have the extra toasted Cheez-Its. They're my favorite one. The extra toasted one. They're very good. No, definitely.
Nah, snacks are always snacks. Something to talk about. Anybody who follows me on Twitter knows I'm always posting stuff. I think a couple weeks ago, I was in the grocery store, took a picture I shared with you on Twitter of the glazed donut flavored popcorn. I didn't buy it. Yes. So I was going to buy a bag and try. I couldn't pull the trigger on it. I just had a feeling I wasn't going to end well. It looked good, but I was like, nah, I'll let somebody else fall on that sword. It ain't gonna be me.
Awesome.
Well, definitely want to thank you so much for coming on Just Three with Joe. I want to make sure everybody knows how they can follow you on social media, read your content. So like I tell all my guests, Marcus, at this time, the floor is yours, my man.
Yeah, Twitter is always the easiest place to find me, at MTC with Mook. Also on Instagram, it's the same thing, at MTC with Mook. Doing some more streaming on Twitch. So we're starting to jump over to the Twitch thing again. Just search for MTC with Mook. You'll find me there. As far as the website, I keep saying it, mtcwithmook.com. But really go to our YouTube channel. Just put in Making the Cut with Mook inside YouTube. Jump on there. You're going to see a ton of video content. Follow me on, like I said, on Instagram. Again, a ton of video content. And that's where we're rolling to. We're going to a lot of video stuff. We're still writing some, especially once we start covering games. Obviously, it'll be a lot of writing, but also you're going to start seeing video post-game interviews and video post-game wrap-ups and those type of things. So stay with us. We're in the era of expansion, and we're looking to expand out. But definitely everything starts with MTC with Mook on Twitter, and then from there, you'll see where we are elsewhere.
Very cool, man. Very cool. I knew when I started this show, I talked to you a couple of weeks before I decided to do the show. I was like, hey, one of these first initial episodes, you got to hop on. You always have great insight. Love talking sports with you and talking about outside of sports as well. So as I said before, thanks so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate you giving some of your time.
Thanks for having me. Anytime, buddy.
Absolutely. Well, I am Joe Cardozo. I want to thank again Marcus Washington for coming on. You guys have been watching episode number 2 of Just 3 with Joe, and I will catch you guys next week.